welcome to the AARP Civic Debate Series, a joint production of Colorado Public Television and AARP. I'm your host, Dominic Dezzutti. Tonight, we complete our series of debates looking at the major races for the Denver City Council. Tonight's debate features the candidates from Denver's District 9. Joining us for the next 30 minutes are Albus Brooks, Candi CdeBaca, Dave Oletski, and Jonathan Woodley. Everyone, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. We have limited time, so let's get right to it. We're going to ask each of our candidates to give a 1-minute answer to the following questions. And Albus, we're going to start with you, and we'll rotate around of who gets to start. This first question is coming up. An affordable public transportation system is vital to a livable city and to the many Denver residents who depend on it. What policies would you pursue in the City Council to promote a more affordable and accessible transportation system for all city residents? Albus.
Yeah, Dom, thank you for having me, and thanks AARP and C12 for hosting this debate. I think to truly create an inclusive city, we need to focus on transit and mobility. We do not have a sustainable funding source for our transit and mobility options in this city. The first thing I do, and I am working on this right now actually, is to make sure that we have an increased sales tax to make sure we get through our Denver Moves program. But more importantly, a larger vision is for us to have a free transit system. The most inclusive transit system that we have in this city is on the 16th Street Mall, and it's a free mall ride. I am advocating for a free system. For that to happen, we have to pay for that through sales tax. And so that's something that I would support. It's a bold idea. No one has really talked about it, but that's something that we can truly create an inclusive transit system.
Candi, same question for you. Creating and making or creating and building a accessible transportation system for the city of Denver.
I think we need a 3-tier approach to public transportation in this city. Right now, we, like Councilman Brooks said, we don't have a sustainable revenue source for mass transit or public transportation because we rely on RTD, a regional transportation district. Our needs are vastly different here in Denver than throughout the region. And so I propose that RTD remain supplemental, but that Denver has its own Department of Transportation and deals with transit on their own, buying up assets and creating and operating our own system here within the city to meet our needs. And the third tier would be partnering with the private sector that's already got it figured out with Uber line and Lyft shared lines. I think that's a better way to help them be better employers and fill the gaps without having to reinvent the wheel.
Dave, promoting a more affordable and accessible transportation system for the city of Denver. How do we do it?
Well, I don't think it should be a free system. For seniors, it should be, and our veterans, it should be free. You know, we just have to work a little harder and perfect the light rail system, the commuter rail system we have now. The railroad runs completely without a glitch, and we have nothing but problems. So we have to perfect that system first, and then start looking at other avenues. Like I said, seniors from 55 years old on up should ride for free, and our retired vets or military active servicemen and women should ride for free.
Jonathan, same question for you. Promoting an accessible and affordable transportation system for the city of Denver.
Well, I think the first step is to not increase the prices of our public transit system. Our public transit system right now is some of the most expensive one-way rides in the country. Our city is very dependent on driving to work. So how do we bring in revenue to improve our transit system? I'm the first candidate that openly expresses that we should bring sports betting to Denver. It's something that I know that the state legislation is working on right now, but it's something that we need immediately. This will bring in additional revenue. And while I feel that the revenue that we bring in from sports betting, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry, could further help our affordable housing funds, it could also be used in transportation and transit. I also feel that veterans, and as David said, veterans, students going to college, high school students, and those seniors should have free transportation. We need to make transportation accessible to the lower income areas as well.
Candi, you're going to be up first in this next question. Denver is currently experiencing a shortage of affordable housing. If elected, what would you do to protect and increase the supply of affordable housing, specifically in light of the prospect of increased gentrification of some neighborhoods and along newly opened light rail lines, especially here in this district? Candi.
Well, first of all, gentrification is not a natural force or phenomenon. It's engineered by policy or lack of policy to protect communities that are stable while they're experiencing a lot of change. I think that we need to implement a lot of different solutions to address housing. One of the biggest challenges right now is not building out of this crisis, because we're not going to build ourselves out of this crisis. We're actually allowing builders to build for the wrong market. We have a surplus of vacant luxury units while we don't have enough affordable units. And so I think that we need to shift the way we work with developers to make sure that we're prioritizing development that solves the problems that we have and meets the needs that we have. I also think we need to reform our zoning code. I don't think that we should allow upzones in areas that are already in crisis. And I think that we need to explore some more innovative zoning options and zoning code options to allow for more creative, innovative co-housing, cooperative living.
Dave, same question. How do we protect and increase affordable housing in the city of Denver?
Well, I've worked very hard and very closely with Habitat for Humanity, and they've got an ideal system of affordable housing. You have to do some sweat labor, and you have to have a down payment. But the financing and the way they have it structured, it's designed that you should never ever lose your home. And I think we need more of that type of thing. You know, instead of not letting the government run things and say, you know, instead of low-income housing, now the thing they're saying now is limited income people. Because in certain areas, they're going to put all the low-income housing in one area. We need to have it equal across all neighborhoods in District 9. And like I said, I think we should look at some private industries like Habitat for Humanity. I mean, that's amazing what they can do and what they have done.
Jonathan, affordable housing in Denver, everyone's talking about it. What should we do?
Well, I want to look, working with developers that want to build these affordable housing units. At the same time, they understand that their profit won't be maximized. I want to look into what we can do on our end to start taking back and finding ways to lower construction costs. Again, I want to implement bringing sports betting to Denver. It can bring in tens of millions of dollars each year to our city to be directed into a restricted affordable housing fund. I also support the efforts that state legislators are making to bring in SB bill or the SB 225, which is stabilization of rent control and having local control over rent control. I also want to regulate how much a development company can charge for processing fees and application fees that are not refundable. So people are losing money while at the same time not being able to get the units that they're applying for.
Let's finish this off. When it comes down to affordable housing, what is the answer to making it sustainable and affordable in Colorado and Denver?
Yeah, that's right. You know, I think it's important to build upon some of the progressive policies that we've already put in place. The preservation ordinance, the preservation fund, the affordable housing fund, which I sponsored, and making sure that we build upon that. We have $300 million that are being invested into affordable housing. Now we need to bring Denver Public Schools, the city of Denver, all of the public entities to the table and all the land that they own, and look for opportunities to build on that. I also think that it's a supply and demand issue. We need to be increasing supply at our transit-oriented development stations. We need to be putting supply at all of our transit station and making sure that those are affordable housing so folks aren't driving all over the city, that those they're able to get around the city and have affordable housing at those transit stations. And so that's the work we need to be doing. It's a progressive policy. I wish we would have been having it 20 years ago. I wish we had a fund 20 years ago, but now we have to build upon it now.
Dave, you're going to start first in this next question. What do you believe to be the greatest barrier for older adults being able to age with dignity in their community?
You know, there again, I was very fortunate. I ran my own business for 20 years, so I had some flexibility. And I always took my mother and father to the doctors, and I helped them out with their health and also their finances. And when you're 20 years old and you go to work and you work hard labor, by the time you're 55, your body is shot, okay? So you usually have to retire early. And we don't have, you usually don't have the money to retire comfortable. I think that we should have seniors that are on Medicare have a supplement of Medicaid, no matter how much coming. They should not have to pay for prescriptions. They shouldn't have to pay co-pays. They shouldn't have to pay for any of that. I think, and the better we take care of our seniors now, not just because I'm one, is the better we're going to take care of these the younger people to get this stuff enacted now. And that way they can afford to stay in their homes.
Jonathan, the greatest barrier to aging with dignity here in our community?
I see a fixed income as the biggest challenge that our elderly and seniors are facing right now. The rising costs here in Denver far exceed what they are in other cities in this country. So being able to pay for things like medication or even just their basic necessities on everyday living and where they're living come really difficult. So what I would like to do is to provide services specially dedicated to seniors and elderly. My father, he was an immigrant coming into this country. He's blind now, and he lives in an independent assisted facility. Now, not all seniors and elderly have sons and daughters that go and help out and can provide care for their elderly parents. So it'd be nice to see our local government step in and kind of take charge on supporting these individuals.
Albus, aging with dignity in Denver.
Yeah, this is something that we see every year. We host several events for our seniors in the community, and they say what it is. Number one, it is rising costs and being on a fixed income. But two, it's being shuttered in their home when there's no connection and there's a rise in technology and they don't know how to connect to the city. And so some of the things that we've been working on with the Commission on Aging is making sure we're getting to those folks who are shuttered in their homes on fixed incomes and making sure they are connected to the city. And they're seeing opportunities in the community. And so whether that's a Senior for Seniors, plowing program and making sure that they are connected to other elderly facilities. And so those are some of the things that we're working on. But the real issue is what's happening federally that we don't have any control over, but we need to be meeting with our congressional folks and saying we do want an expansion of Medicaid and Medicare in this city so that our folks, our seniors, have access to that.
Candi, the barriers to aging with dignity in Denver.
I was fortunate enough to be raised by my grandmother and my great-grandmother and then became their primary caretaker at the age of 14. So I got to see the world through their lens, and I would agree that the three things that are challenging them the most are the rising cost of living, incomplete neighborhoods, and navigating bureaucracies for resources. I would say that the rising cost of living for even people who have paid off their homes, the increases in taxes are not easily absorbed by someone on a fixed income. The incomplete neighborhoods, it's very difficult for elders or community in general to access what they need within a mile of their home. And so the older you become, the more challenging it is to get access rides, to get on buses, to do all of that in an effective, safe way. And the third piece, navigating complicated bureaucracies. Even if there are resources in this city, it's next to impossible to get some of the basics, even just food stamps, even just access to Access-a-Ride. Those barriers need to be removed for our elderly. The city needs to be supporting our elderly through navigating those processes.
Jonathan, you're going to be answering first in this next question. I want to talk about both Initiative 300 and the camping ban. They seem to be intertwined. Initiative 300 is on the May 7th ballot. The camping ban is currently part of Denver policy. Do you support, what is your position on both Initiative 300 and the camping ban? And Jonathan, we're going to start with you.
Okay, first I'll say the camping ban, I feel, was directed at a population, our homeless, that was very generalized. I feel the local government generalized our homeless population as just injection and drug users and vagrants. And I feel that the Initiative 300 is depicting our homeless as just working families that are struggling. I think both messages are misplaced, and there needs to be a middle ground. Unfortunately, both sides are on two ends of the spectrum that are both extreme. So while I don't support the camping ban, I don't support Initiative 300. And 300 is titled as the right to survive. And that's a very catchy tagline, but once you start reading what the initiative is, you'll realize that it really is unfair to both those working hard and trying to better their life here in Denver and those that are homeless and struggling. You can't just generalize homelessness into one category. But for the sake of a yes or no question, I'm against Initiative 300, and we actually should be doing better. We're just not.
Albus, your position on Initiative 300 and the current camping ban?
Yeah, so, we talk about this in a silo, and it's really not. I'm against Initiative 300 because we as a city should not just step over our issues. We should actually address them. And our issue with folks who are struggling with homelessness is around housing. We all agree on that. So let's do something about it. Let's put together an initiative where it's focused on housing resources. And that's what I've been about. That's why we've built the most affordable housing for homeless folks in the city and services. The camping ordinance, I believe it's incompassionate to allow people to sleep outside. This is a cold weather city. We should be adding resources and supporting things like Caring for Denver. Which is mental health services that will go for folks who are homeless and folks who are struggling with mental health issues. So those are things that I support. 300 does nothing to help our most vulnerable. I want to help, and I want to do something great.
Candi, your position on Initiative 300 and the current camping ban as policy in Denver?
So when Albus implemented the camping ban, that was an ordinance that essentially made it illegal to be homeless or poor in this city. They passed that ordinance without complementing it with a package of resources to address homelessness or housing. And so we find ourselves in this position where we have not given real solutions to the problems we're facing, and we have criminalized the condition of people who we have not helped. And so I'm proud of the people who led the citizen-led ballot initiative called 300. I'm proud of them for taking it into their own hands when many are characterizing them as helpless, unconcerned, disengaged. They've taken it upon themselves to say, no, we are not illegal. It is not illegal to be homeless. We want real solutions. And in order to get there, our existence has to be acknowledged and we have to confront it head on. So I don't support the camping ban, never did, and absolutely support 300 and am committed to putting real solutions behind that ordinance.
Dave, your thoughts on Initiative 300 and the camping ban?
You know, I think we should keep the camping ban. You know, it's a tough situation, but at the same time, it isn't a housing problem. You know, what we have are veterans on homeless that we need to get off the street. And I've been working with my church to turn the convent back into a veterans housing. And hopefully we can get that done. The other thing, we have to get the elderly off the street. You know, that's too tough for them to be out there. But at the same time, and people don't know this, and I keep telling them, there is an underground movement of young homeless people that don't want to work. They're in good health. They just want to live on the streets. Like back in the 60s when there was hippies, this is another group that is absolutely different than that, and they're destroying everything that gets in their way, mountain property, waterways, and they don't care. They just want it to destroy the infrastructure. And then once we get those two off the street, the homeless and the veterans, then we can see what we really have to work with.
We have time for about one more question, everybody. I'm going to ask for a shorter answer on this one, about 30 seconds, if you wouldn't mind. And Albus, it's your turn to start a question. What do you believe to be the greatest barrier to older adults staying in the workforce and or re-entering the workforce after the age of 50? And what can the City of Denver do to ensure equal access to all interested in working?
You know what? I think it's a great question. I think it's about age discrimination. I think with a city like Denver that's attracting a lot of young talent, we hear, and I have sat with many of my elderly constituents and say, I don't feel like I can compete in the workplace because of age discrimination. Well, first of all, that's illegal. And so I think we as a city need to be enforcing that, and where we see it, we need to be calling it out. And so we have talked, and formulated a group. We have a commission on aging who can deal with that, and we need to be implementing that.
Candi, your thoughts on aging in the workforce and staying in the workforce?
Within my lifetime, technology has changed very quickly. And a lot of the kids who are being born now are being called digital natives because they're born in a way into a society that teaches them to adapt really quickly. The older generation, I think, is struggling with the rate of technological advancement in the workplace. And so I think that there needs to be a concerted effort to keep them up to date with the technological advances that are happening, instead of taking for granted the rate at which the younger population is learning to adapt to those advances. And so for my parents, my dad retired last year, my mom is a couple years from retirement, and I do that teaching independently, but I think workplaces should make it possible for them to learn and grow with the companies.
Dave, how do we help folks who want to stay in the workforce?
Well, I'm in that category. Okay, I'm 64 years old. And to try to compete with these young kids, you can't. You just can't. There's just no comparison, And what the young kids don't realize, they're not all supposed to get a position in life. They first have to go to work, okay? The elderly, and they want all the elderly to do the work because they think that they're better and smarter, and it's not true. We have a lot of life experience that they can't have till they get there. And I think companies need to look at this and do things appropriately,
Jonathan, wrap it up for us. Your thoughts on aging in the workforce.
Well, aging of workforce, what I would like to see is programs provided, whether it's private or public, that help our older generations with technological advancements. Right now, there aren't that many jobs available that pay well and can keep someone afloat, such as someone that is over the age of 50 that's trying to reinvent their whole life. Changing a career at any age is difficult, but when you're already at a technological disadvantage, it makes it more difficult.
Well, as I always say, a half hour goes by very fast in the studio, and it has indeed this time as well. It's time for our closing statements. We're asking each of our candidates to give a 30-second closing statement. We picked an order out of a hat before the debate. Albus, you're up first for your 30-second closing statement.
Well, thank you for having me, and I thank AARP and C12 for putting this together, and Don for moderating, and my opponents for being here. I'll say that I'm excited to be the city council person in this district. And choosing the next council person for this district, you need to think about what I talk about, 3 L's, which is, are they willing to listen, legislate, and lead? Are they willing to listen to diverse views and come together on a consistent point? Can they pass legislation with other city council members? And can they lead in bold situations? I've done all 3, and I would love your vote for City Council District 9. Thank you.
Thank you, Albus. Jonathan, you're up next for your 30-second closing statement.
Thank you, Dom, for hosting this, and AARP for providing us this outlet. This election is about economic disparity. The election is about keeping the identity, culture, and diversity that makes Denver great. I bring a different approach, a people's approach, void of special interest groups. One of my opponents favors high-income earners. Another favors a political ideology that will not serve the city well, and another just wants to keep his family tradition alive. My vision is to create a cosmopolitan approach to how we view and how we live with each other. I want to create a community where we can support the efforts of everyone willing to put in the work to build equality, to build ownership, to build equity, and to build the quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Candi, you're up next for your 30-second closing statement.
Thank you. My name's Candi CdeBaca. I'm a fifth-generation native of this district. Nothing we're building in this city matters more than building up our people. I'm a social worker, a community organizer, a policy expert that's worked for this community my entire life. I think it's time for us to build a Denver that is responsible, sustainable, and accountable to its people, and that's what I commit to do. And the first step to doing that is putting people above profit. That's what I've always done, and that's what I will continue to do after you elect me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dave, you're last up for your 30-second closing statement.
Thank you, sir, for this debate. Anyway, I will work for District 9 to make it a healthy, clean, safe environment and make it an equal place where all neighborhoods are created equal, and take care of the elderly and our veterans, and just continue to. I've worked on many programs like the AARP Superfund site, but what I will do always, what I've been doing, is I will continue to play Santa Claus for the kids. It's just something I do.
That's probably one of the more unique points we've had in the closing statement. Well done, Dave. That is all the time we have for our look at the Denver City Council race in District 9. I'd like to thank our candidates for joining us: Albus Brooks, Candi CdeBaca, Dave Oletski, and Jonathan Woodley. I also want to remind you, Election Day is May 7th. You've probably already seen the ballots in your mailbox. Be sure you get them in by May 7th. And there may be a runoff, so you're also going to want to be sure to stay tuned for that. Whether it's this race or others, you might have to vote again by June 4th. So be sure to do that. For everyone here at